Hi everyone, and thank you for joining me for the final instalment of Talking About Tokyo. Today I'm joined by the one and only Sarah Jones, making her name for Hockey Wales and GB Hockey as she reflects on being selected for her first Olympics. Hi Sarah, congratulations. How does it all feel?
Um, just it feels a bit overwhelming, to be honest. I think when I hear people say that I'm going to Olympics and I'm being Olympian, that feeling at the moment hasn't really stopped. Being a bit crazy, to be honest. So I'm sure at some point it will do, and maybe when I get to the village, it will all sink in. But at the moment, just still feels a bit bonkers, if I'm honest.
Just revel in it, have fun. Well, we have loads of Hockey Wales fans who are very excited to get to know you a bit better and follow your journey. So I've got some would you rather questions so they can get to know you, all hockey related, of course.
Obviously.
Okay, ready? If you're in a short corner defence, would you rather run one or go post?
I'd literally rather not do anything. I've never done penalty corner defence in my life. Can I be behind the goal? I would rather be on the post.
You could be kick carrier. There you go.
Yeah.
Would you rather do a flick or a shuffle?
A shuffle.
Yes, I agree. A weight session or a running session?
Running session all day long. I hate
You're the only one.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, obviously, Rupert and Jacob and Leah are pretty stacked, aren't they? Look at them.
Would you rather have a home game or an away game?
Home game.
Nice. You like the crowd?
Something like that.
Yeah. And back to the Olympics. Where were you when you heard about your selection?
I was right here in my home. My mum was with me, which was really nice. Leah and I decided to get the results in separate locations because we didn't know how it was going to go. So just at home.
And how did your mum react?
She cried a lot. I cried a lot. We're both criers. I think it was just a bit, it's so bizarre. It just coming down to that one moment of receiving an email, like everything culminated, not just the 5-year Olympic cycle, but obviously every time that you ever played hockey, I guess, kind of comes towards that one point. All the emotions that you can possibly imagine just in one little email, really.
Well, I remember seeing that picture of you and your mum hugging through the plastic sheet last year, so it doesn't surprise me that you're both a bit emotional. Do you have, of everyone that you've told, do you have a most memorable reaction?
Do I have a most? No, I think, people react in very, I think, different ways. We're definitely a family of criers. So even telling like my closest, my mum, my dad, my sister, but also even my extended family are all kind of criers. I think probably being with my mum was quite special, but no particularly most memorable.
Well, your hockey journey it stemmed in Cardiff in the Welsh community. How important is that Welsh aspect, that Welsh sort of playing in the heart? How has it shaped your career?
I think when you think about the Welsh identity in sports, growing up watching a lot of rugby, personally playing a lot of football, especially kind of in my childhood, and then going on to play lots of sports, but hockey obviously being the main one. I think it really does shape you. I think, growing up, I played basically a lot of sport alongside boys. And then, like I say, watching a lot of rugby, being in town when, you could hear the rugby match going on, and I just kind of be like sitting on the grass or watching it on some TV or in a pub or something like that. That feeling of togetherness, of playing for the Three Feathers, of just listening to the anthem, and and just that kind of, I guess, a slight underdog mentality. I think it's completely shaped the player that I am, and has probably helped me get to the point that I'm at now. Really, it's an identity that I'm incredibly proud of, and I think that it really has helped me get to where I am right now.
Well, you've been playing for the senior women's Welsh national team for over 10 years. Congratulations, by the way. Do you have a favourite moment in the shirt?
I always go back to that match against India at the Commonwealth Games. It was obviously a highlight in terms of beating a very highly ranked team at the first game of a Commonwealth Games. And that in itself is huge. But I think I'm more proud of how we played. Obviously, you know, scoring in the final moments, Tash scoring that incredible goal. But when I look back at how we played and everything kind of coming towards that moment, it kind of just summed up the team that we were, the team of 16, and everything that we'd kind of built towards. And I'm really proud of being able to play that way against a stronger team, because sometimes there was a lot of holding on, there was a lot of short corners, and Rose will tell you that, and a lot of really, you know, dogged defending. But there was also really exciting attacking and, you know, playing lots of triangles and 1-2s and attacking hockey, and, you know, Phoebe and Eloise just flying down the wings and things like that. So yeah, when I reflect, that's more what I remember, being really proud of how we played rather than necessarily even, you know, the scoreline and such.
Lovely. And you've been fortunate enough to spend most of your playing career with your fiance Leah. How does it feel for you guys to be selected together?
It's in some ways completely surreal, because when someone says that to me, it's obviously a bit weird, because most people would never even work with their other half, never mind, you know, it culminating in going to an Olympics with them. But in some ways, as you say, because we've done a lot of our hockey playing careers together, it almost feels like the normal course of events, because we go to work together every morning, and you know, have done endless running sessions together, and, you know, late nights at club hockey or anything, or driving home. There's so many I feel like we spend our lifetimes driving. So in some ways it almost feels quite normal, because we've kind of done it all together. But I get that it is very special and it is quite unique.
Yes, unique is definitely the word. And we heard about your decision to stay apart during the selection day, the selection process. Have you got any more sort of rules or practices that you guys have put in place for the actual Olympics?
No, to be honest, it's not something that we've really thought about as between us. I think that, you know, we go through a lot of processes as teammates, as you can imagine. You know, we talk about so many scenarios, especially with COVID. You know, we go through kind of all the scenarios as a team. And I guess, you know, at some points in that, you know, like when we're on the pitch and stuff, Leah is just my teammate. And I guess that's, so we fall into those processes as teammates rather than as a, you know, an engaged couple or whatever. So, but no, we haven't really spoken a lot, and we didn't really speak a lot about Olympic selection either. I think, yeah, we just kind of go with it. That makes it sound very easygoing, and we're not. But
well, this is going to be a really different Olympics anyway. So I suppose you guys can't really prepare for what's coming up because nobody really knows.
Completely, yes. And whilst, like I said, we've gone through a lot of scenarios as a team and talked about, you know, kind of how we would work through that. Like you say, there will be so many scenarios that come up that we won't have planned for. I think the idea of doing that is just to ease a bit of the anxiety around a lot of the not knowing. And maybe if we've thought about, or at least gone through a couple of scenarios, obviously, you know, we've traveled throughout this whole COVID period and we've been going through a lot of those processes. So we're almost quite experienced in that, which is, I think, a real benefit in terms of going away, in comparison to some other teams that might not have gone through that. So I think it just helps you be a bit more confident in your own processes, and equally be really confident in whatever the BOA and obviously the Olympic Committee does, just to have that real confidence as a team in what you're doing.
Well, one thing we do know is that there aren't going to be any international spectators and then limited spectators otherwise. How do you feel about that? Do you think it will impact your play at all?
To be honest, I think in a game like hockey, where you probably aren't used to, you know, lots of spectators, you know, I'm thinking about, like you said, playing that first cap for Wales, you know, over 10 years ago. I'm not sure I had a lot of spectators there, used to, you know, one man and his dog being at Sophia Gardens. So in some ways it's a shame, but I think it almost puts even more focus on the team creating their own environment. And I think that's something that's very powerful, and equally something that we're really good at in our team. And So, just creating that own atmosphere, from the very first whistle, in fact, from the warm up and everything that you do up to that point, I think in some ways it's even more powerful, and it very much has its, advantages, instead of relying on a crowd to do that for you, I guess.
And you've been fortunate enough to all have already visited Tokyo on the training trip. Did you get a sense of the culture and the place then?
Yeah, hugely. So we went to Hiroshima, which was incredible, and the people were just fantastic, and it was we obviously got to see a bit of Hiroshima, which was really interesting and harrowing, and we really got a sense of the place, probably more so, let's be honest, than we will when we go to Tokyo. But yeah, that in itself, I think you get both a sense of the culture and what you're going to expect, but also obviously the climate being a massive one, and the main reason why we went out, to get a sense of what it feels like to be hot and humid all the time.
And would you say that's the best way that trip prepared you? Or did you take
Yeah, I would say so. And I think, little things like, it sounds really silly, but in terms of, equipment, you need a lot more because it's all wet all the time. So you might go through, a couple of pairs of shoes in a game, or might need to use a slightly different grip on your stick, or, because it's so hot, we've gone through a lot of cooling strategies. So, using kind of like ice pops and cold fans and things like that, and all those kind of things. It's really good to give those things a run through before suddenly you're playing in your first Olympic match and everything's hitting you like a train, so you don't really think about cooling strategies.
And now when you actually get to the Olympic Games, what's the one thing about the wider experience that you're most looking forward to?
It's really bad that whenever people say that, I always think about the food hall, because I always think about it's always I remember at the 2014 Commonwealth Games, it was the thing that struck me most. I know I should say like the volunteers or something like that, but it's just quite an incredible experience to be in such a huge place of food as someone that just loves food. So yeah, my nutritionist probably wouldn't be very happy with me saying that, but that's probably the biggest thing. And also, I mean, meeting other athletes is seriously cool. You like to pretend that we're all on the same level, but let's be honest, we're not. And it's an incredible experience to meet, athletes both in your team and outside of it.
Well, that was my next question. I've got some quick fire questions for you to help you deal with the pressure that you're going to experience in Tokyo.
Okay.
I have to play my part, Sarah.
Oh God, I'm not going to perform very well. Okay.
The first thing that comes to your head as fast as you can. Okay?
Okay.
Who's the person in the Team GB Olympic setup that you're most excited to meet?
Geraint Thomas, maybe? Yeah.
Ooh, good one. And what about for all of the teams at the Olympics? Who are you most excited to meet?
Maybe someone like Simone Biles or someone cool like that.
I agree. Who's the team you're most excited to play?
Germany, opening game.
Ooh, nice. What's your pre-game meal?
Oh, depends on the time of day. I'm quite beige with the pre-game meal. So something very just carb based, very, just like poached eggs or something basic.
Nice. What's the first thing you would choose to do on a rest day?
Probably some kind of like active recovery, like in a pool, something like, God, that was such a sad answer.
I want to go to the pool.
Go to the pool. Yeah, it just makes you feel good, doesn't it? Makes you feel refreshed. I can't believe I just said that.
One form of recovery was your choice. And if you weren't a hockey player, what would you be?
A footballer.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that. I saw it coming a mile off. And just finally, do you have a message for all the Welsh hockey fans who want to support your journey to Tokyo?
I just think I'd probably like to say, in the first instance, a massive thank you to them for helping me get to this point. You really feel the support of the Welsh hockey family behind you, regardless of if you're in a Team GB shirt, if you're in a Welsh shirt, and that honestly feels very special. So thank you. And I expect to see all of you up in the 2 a.m. games or whatever we're playing in, supporting me and the rest of the team. Yeah, and I just think, it's a huge testament to Hockey Wales that we've got 4 athletes in Team GB, and the hockey family have helped us get there. So thanks for doing your part.
Well, we can't wait to watch you, Sarah. Best of luck, and we'll make sure we keep everybody updated on your journey.
Thanks very much, Sydney.